Welcome back to Sunday Night Teacher Talk, a place where our water bottles are as big as our microphones. So
what happens when you try and drink 90 ounces of water
90
a day.
ounces. I do like 80 something, I think.
We drink a lot of water.
We drink a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
Man. My mom, never mind. That was ridiculous. But thanks for being here, everybody. So the idea here, as always, is to be here for one another. And yesterday, I think of this often. One of the things I talk about when I mentor people is trying to like reaffirm them that you're built different. And Seth Godin has this great conversation around. He says people like us do things like this. And what that means is people when in this sphere right now that we're in this teacher sphere, the crazy ones take their own time out to get mentoring from someone that they've ever met in real life. Now, I realize that when you see people on the internet, I know I most certainly feel this way. You watch enough of someone's stuff, you feel like you know them, but then you meet them and they're like, I have no idea who you are really. Like you don't know as much. The scale is not equal, but it is, when I think about the kind of folks that would sign up for mentoring, the kind of folks that yesterday for the lesson planning workshop that would sign up, the folks that would spend either their own money or they have figured out a way to get their school to use their money to pay for a workshop or something like that, or the folks that are showing up on a Sunday afternoon. And here, it is the first time we have blue skies today and it's 76 degrees outside. It is perfect weather right now. But you're inside, or at least you have AirPods on and you're listening to this. Whatever it is, you're the kind of person that is consuming this sort of thing, whether it's as a podcast or as a video, and that makes you different. Like, I want y'all to think about that for a second. Like, the folks at your school are not doing this. And that's no diss to them, but it is absolutely should be a reconfirming affirmation to you to know that the work you're doing is special and that you take it as such. And that you didn't just have a bad day last week or a bad week or a bad year and you just gave up. You're actively pursuing ways to get better. And that is really, really something special. So I just wanted to kind of like kick off with that. Lesson planning workshop yesterday was awesome. I'm so glad that I didn't say it was 60 minutes. I just ballparked 90 minutes. And because even when you practice talks, they're never the same as when
it's not the same flow.
You do it. Because you'll see something you want to lean into a little bit, or you go, I can do that one a little bit fast. Like your flow's different.
Yeah.
But it was really good. It's always really nice to meet people in the Q&A afterwards, and everyone was really sweet and nice, and it was nice to talk to them. So it was just a really good experience. And I hit that 90-minute mark like a champion. I was like, oh, this is the first time ever, right? Every single time we do a workshop, it's
that's because you always think you can get it done in 60 minutes. And I think you have a little bit of a realization that like either there's a lot to teach or like I don't know.
I don't think I could get done anything in 60 minutes.
I don't think so.
I always go, I got it.
And then it's like you said 90 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready for a question?
Which is, you know what? Let me just say this real quick. I am ready for a question, but which is probably why I've had to put so many systems in place with regards to even lesson planning yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. Because if I don't put systems in, so I'm such a systems guy these days. And we were talking about this morning, because otherwise your day will run away with itself. If I don't put, like we were saying, we even have a chore chart for our kids, right? So our kids have had chores for ages, but
we just tell them what they are. And
or they'll be like, all right, what do you want me to do? And it's like, I don't know. Like sometimes I have a list, sometimes I don't. Now there's a running chart. Now it doesn't mean I can't add things to it, but I know that by and large, I'm never taking the trash out again for the rest of my life. I'll never pick up dog poop until my kids are old enough.
Unload the dishwasher.
Yeah, unload the dishwasher. Like certain things I just will not have to do because someone else is going to do it. I've systematized it. and systematized how they track their own stuff. So every week a new form gets printed out. And that is, so what I'm constantly thinking of is how do I systematize stuff? Because that discipline does equal freedom. It gives me more time, space, and energy to have back to myself. And that's what I want.
Yeah, I am not always the system person. I'm the fly by the seat of my pants kind of person. But I will say, man, systems really do free up a lot of like mind share. The fact that the kids have a chore chart, it was like mind blowing. It really showed me like, oh, I don't have to keep track of who did the dishwasher last and whose turn it is tonight and who did this and what and all this stuff. I like just sat down, did the work on the front end, put it in a system, created that system, and now we have it. And I'll tell you, last week I didn't print out the paper. And
stuff didn't get done.
No, but it was like I had to like actively participate in that. It took space up in my mind that when we, so CJ was very sure to print out the chore chart for everybody this week. So it's on the fridge and it's there for them to implement, but it really saves a lot of mind share. Like there's enough stuff going on in everyone's life. Like things you can put into a system really free up a lot of space in your mind. And that's not always my go-to, but I do see value in it. And especially being an educator, holy crap, there's so many plates y'all are spinning every moment
you gotta
of the day.
Systematize.
Yeah, you really do.
So with that, hit me with a question.
It's a good one. We were kind of talking about this morning, so we'll see how you answer it. John Lopez is asking, question, what insights have you gained now that you are in a substitute position?
All right. This is a great question. There's something I'll tell you what, John, let me say this. Let's enter into this real quick. There's a slight freedom of knowing that this is now a paid platform, because I know that you can't get any creepers in there, because I have some creepers that show up sometimes and they'll be like, yo, Reynolds, I heard you talking about this week. And I'm like, oh, snap. I guess it still goes out on the podcast, but like
they really could still get access to it. But...
So things I'm learning. One, when you leave sub plans, you have to like, I think the trouble with sub plans, John, is that folks do them last minute because they are either sick or there's an emergency. So it can be difficult. If you do not have time, I think teachers, and I talked about this in the program yesterday, should have 3 to 5 emergency lesson plans that are standalone activities that if you are like not there, right? So your school can just pull from that, but those are different for me. Those are, I'm not even going to talk about how they're different unless someone really wants to know. But when I'm coming up with 3 to 5, those are for me also. So that's like when the internet goes out, when the printer breaks, stuff like that. But these should also be something that you can transfer to a sub should you need it all of a sudden. Because for me, it's like I go in and everything's there. First of all, not everyone's very good at labeling things. So they'll mention, they'll have like today's objectives, like here's what you need to do. And it says, hand out this thing, hand out bell ringer. But then there's no paper that says bell ringer on it. So I don't know. What am I inventing? Which one? Then I got to ask kids, which one do you think's the bell ringer? You know, they don't all agree. They're like, I'm dealing with 6th graders. I got like 4 different answers. So then it is, have them do iStation for 12 minutes. So I have them log on the iStation, but I don't know I don't have a login. So I can't see if anyone did it, if they didn't do it. Like that is tricky too. So the thing is, not having a very clear plan is incredibly disruptive. Teachers that assign something that the students already did. And I'm talking about like the really good, like kids that love learning and love knowledge. Those are your students that are like, yo, we already did this, Mr. Reynolds. And so then what happens when that happens? So I'll go to another teacher and say, hey, look, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't have access. I don't have a textbook. I don't have anything. And then they give them the dumbest assignment. So they'll say, oh, okay, have them go to chapter 12, which they're not even on chapter 12. No one can even know. You just made this up. And then write these words and definitions. It's literally just, here is work that is meaningless, that is busy work that you will do. And that kind of thing, like not setting a sub up for success is incredibly difficult. I think the other piece is when subs come in and there's no sense of what classroom management norms there are. I find, and I saw this even in my school because we used to have to cover other teachers' classes, you can get a real sense of how kids normally behave when they are in a class when you're subbing. So I typically got good reports from my students because I didn't play in class. But I'm covering some of these classes and I'm like, yo, it's a free for all in here every day when y'all come in here. And that is troubling because I don't know. It's like, can I send a kid out? Can I, so one class that's great that I've subbed for is my 5th grade class, and they have a classroom economy. So you just charge kids money and they have to give you money when they act up. You're like, yo, do it again. It's $2, bro. And they don't want to lose that money. And then if they do, they hand over the cash. That's really great. But when you don't have it, it's awesome. When you don't have it, it's like those kids it's like you don't know what to do with themselves. So I think one of my takeaways is have a very clear plan for your sub. Make sure you're setting them up for success and they have everything they need. 2, have a backup plan just in case that plan goes wrong. So kids aren't copying words and definitions out of the book, which is basically useless. I mean, there's a tiny bit of value, I think, but that's another conversation too. And 3, your school should have an idea of like, what do I do with a kid who's absolutely refusing to do anything? And I don't have a relationship. There's no buy-in here because I'm the sub. So that's difficult. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's just the tip of the iceberg here.
So much stuff you're learning from subbing.
A ton.
I think one of the important things is when you talked about like having a clear plan for your substitute, that goes back to just the idea of communication. We often communicate ideas to people that we think that they understand, or we think that because we have all the knowledge, you have all the knowledge in your head. So you're writing it and you're going, yeah, this is enough. But it's like, but when someone doesn't have the same knowledge that you have in your head, and then you read it, you're like, wait, there's like 1,000 holes in this.
You know what a fix is for
lacking information.
A fix for that is, I think, and tell me if you agree, I would run that sub plan through ChatGPT. And here's one of the things I've learned from ChatGPT is that awesome. It fills in blanks that I didn't think about. So it takes a bit of a longer way around to explain something that I wrote up. So it's like, oh, okay, that's more clear.
Yes.
So I think that's a good, and you can even ask it, like run it through and say, am I missing anything?
I think
what resources should I add? And it will tell you that stuff. And I think that's a good, I refer to Chat as my assistant. It's my C-level assistant. It doesn't get an A+. It definitely doesn't fail, but it's like like if I had somebody there that was like, hey, take a look at this, type this up and then take a look at it real quick and let me know.
I don't know. It rewrites my emails so much better than I could write them. I love ChatGPT for that.
But that's what an assistant would do also, right?
Absolutely.
You would say, hey, write an email to John Lopez and let him know these are my 3 top takeaways for thing. Hey, John, hope you're having the most. It's just like
it does it so nicely.
The same thing an assistant would do, but I pay for the pro, which I think is $10 a month.
But there is a learning curve unless you're just doing it basic like I do. I literally type in revise semicolon and I just copy and paste my email in there, and it just creates like a better flow. Because that's where I struggle with emails. But for what you're talking about, there is a nuance in what you ask ChatGPT, but it really does help fill in the gaps for that, like the communication where like, you know what you're saying, but am I actually communicating it? Yeah. You've talked about that. And I really hope that you do that video because you've learned how to like
get good at using it.
You have to ask the right questions to be successful with ChatGPT. Okay. Maisha's up next asking,
Maisha's here.
How can I redirect my students when they experience severe FOMO, especially over things that don't actually involve them? That's so funny.
As someone who is sitting in New Mexico right now, as Philadelphia is going through some tragedy right now too.
Yes.
But even tragedy gives you FOMO sometimes because you wish you were there to talk with your students about things. If y'all didn't see, there was a plane crash in a residential area in Philadelphia, and it caused an enormous amount of damage and killed 6 people. But like even something like that, you wish you were around for. Where my head went first actually was the Super Bowl is happening, and so there's like a send off for the Eagles, and I know students are going to be there. And there's Broad Street's one of them. So there's 2 main roads in Philadelphia, and Broad Street's one of those. And I don't know if you saw everyone's videos after the Eagles won, Broad Street was filled, but like everybody was down there. Like Min was down there and Danzler and like teachers and students and friends. And I was like, oh, like the whole family was down there.
Serious FOMO.
So I think it is experience severe FOMO, especially when things don't actually involve them.
Like, Maisha, are you saying like another class is doing something really fun and they're not in that class and they're like, can't even pay attention because they have such FOMO? They're like concentrated on the other.
If that's the case, so you send a follow up if you have. If that's the case, then I think it's one of the conversations. There's a couple things here. One of the conversations I like to have with students is how are we being glad someone else gets that experience, right? Like having that conversation, right? Like I one of the things that really changed my mind, and maybe this is applicable, but without talking about it, sometimes these are hard to answer. But Maisha, I'm wondering, like, one of the things that was talked to me about recently was, when you see someone in life or on social doing better than you are, getting opportunities that you want, getting recognition that you're not getting, and instead of feeling jealous about that, look at it as a clue of what is possible. And so I would talk to my class about, well, all right, so now look, they all went on a trip and they got to do something super fun and cool. How could we do something like that? What's a plan we could make to do something like that? So it's having that, like, let's see what's possible. Like, how good for them. Let's practice saying good for you instead of saying like, why not me? And then how could we do something like that? And sometimes in the moment, and I have to be careful with this one because I try and fix everyone's problems all the time. And like, it's like, oh, you're having a sad day. Like, let me lay down the railroad tracks for you. So especially with my kids, it's, can we do something today that's awesome, wonderful, cool, exciting, interesting? Maybe. But that's one, like I said, I got to be careful with. But that's where I would go to, is like, awesome. Now we know that's possible. Like, I know that I was the first to do a lot of things in my school, and I'm sure there was a lot of FOMO. And that's how I would have handled it if I was other teachers. Like, I was the first to ever take kids abroad. I was the first to ever do class trips out of state. I was the first to do class trips on the weekend. Have celebrities come into the school. First to have, bless you.
Thank you.
A lot of different, even like going to escape rooms and stuff. People were like, that's a viable option for a class trip. Like, we were just going to the art museum. I'm like, hell yeah.
Did you get a lot of like nasty feedback from other students that weren't in your class, or like that FOMO kind of behavior?
Yes. And that is, I'm just noticing that's wrong over there. My ADD is showing me that at great site is not right. Oh. Anyway, sometimes from teachers, that's more of just a look or a feeling, but from students that are like, how come you didn't take me on that trip? You're not in my class. Why aren't I in your class? Because you're not in my class. Like,
let me ask you, how is Maisha supposed to handle that when she's in the middle? So would you literally, instead of like redirecting and just trying to get them to pay attention, would you stop and have the conversation, which then
yes, always
would yield them to just naturally
redirect? I never, and this is just from experience, anything that's going on, right? I find that like, whether it's FOMO, whether it's you're aggravated about something that happened, like the previous teacher yelled at the whole class, or the principal yelled at everyone this morning, or there was a plane crash, or there's something going on in the news that upsets you. When we don't stop to have the conversation, it takes away from your whole lesson. I find it's better to stop, talk about it for 10 minutes, redirect. Like it's just like ourselves, right? Like when I can stop and pray, I know it's literally taking time away from my day, but not really.
Yeah.
Because then otherwise I have this low key anger, frustration, or anxiety all through my day that really screws up the rest of it. It's like, stop.
Same thing for your class.
Catch your breath and then keep going instead of just trying to push through it. I find that pushing through it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I find that kids are far more resilient than we think. And I can get the majority of people back on track. Not everyone. I mean, you're still going to have 2 kids who are like, it still sucks. Still sucks. Why aren't we there? I hate this school. I still hate this school.
Hormonal teenagers. Okay.
And preteens.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Tristan is up next asking, why/when does there seem to be a lack of appreciation between staff? I gave out sincerely written cards for Christmas, and the senior staff were appreciative because they never got that before.
Is it the end of the question?
Yes.
All right. Man, I don't know that I could tell you why, as that would just cause a lot of speculation.
Well, I don't think so. I think there's some natural humanness to it, right? Humans, we don't like go say the good thing. We focus on the negative. We focus on what's not working. Like we were talking about this morning, how I was saying that like even situations that we prayed for and we now have, like private school, like, and not just, we didn't pray for private school, but we prayed for a good fit for our children and their learning needs. And this is the school that is the best fit for them. And they both got in, which was a blessing. But is it perfect? No. So it's like any situation, like, and we can, being in education, like, a lot, right? So we can spot the problems like easily, but it's not perfect. I just think it's our human nature to focus on the negative, right? And to talk about the negative, but we don't ever really talk about the positives, and we don't even share them. Like that's why people hate negative reviews at their restaurant, right? That gets way more traction than all the positive reviews. Like, so I think some of it's just human nature, but then go ahead, take it on.
No, I think you're right. I think it's also, well, no one does that for me. Right. It's like that kind of mindset of like, no one does that for me, or you're too busy and you're selfish with your time. I don't think folks realize the value of that. The value of that for the culture of the school, for the mindset of your staff, and for you. I love doing nice stuff just for me. So I walk every time. My son and I take 2 walks a week. And every time we do 2 miles at a time, and we pick up trash the whole way, right? I don't do it so anyone's going to say thank you. Part of it is like, I just feel good doing something for a neighborhood, and I don't like seeing trash around. So we just clean up trash the whole time we walk. We bring like 4 or 5 shopping bags with us that are single use. So now they're double use, and we just clean up. I like every year writing cards to students, writing letters to students, writing things to other staff members, having students write things to other staff members. I did this as a sub the other day. I usually do this as a sub. Write a quick note to your teacher, letting them know one thing that you like about them, right? And then I just leave a pile on their desk. No one ever says thank you. No one ever even says like, hey, I got those letters. That was a really great way to start my day, right? Nothing. It just keeps going.
I'm sure if you screwed up their class, you would hear about that
absolutely.
One, right?
But to me, it is, Tristan, like, it's doing it anyway. So 2 things I would point you towards in this, right? If this is like your jam. One is a book by Jesse Cole, who is the owner of the Savannah Bananas. He wrote a book called Fans First, and it is excellent. Something new. Yes, I recommend it all the time. If I could have a bunch of copies and just send them to people, like that's one of my, when I reach this financial marker, I will just have copies of books that I will send to people, and I would just send it to you right now. I'm not there yet. It's a great book. One of the new things I found out is that Spotify, I don't know why I didn't know about this. They have tons of audiobooks on there, right? Like good audiobooks that you would typically have to go to Audible to get. And the other one is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Goddard. Even if you don't read the whole book, read the chapter called Dreamweavers. And it is how his business, they run it so cost effectively. This is 11 Madison Park, the number one restaurant in the world. They run their business so efficiently. I think this is people ask where I get ideas from. I'm going full ADD right now. People ask me where I get ideas from for things. And one of the things that came up yesterday is I look everywhere for ideas. So I'm reading this book. I think this guy's a fascinating, interesting individual. He talks about how they run their business so efficiently that they have the capability to spend 1% on just magic. And that the way they manifest that, it is remarkable. They have 2 full-time employees and their jobs are they're dream weavers. All they do is go around. So imagine if you had someone at your school that their full-time position was, how do I make teachers' days better? What's a special thing I can do for kids? How do I make this day better for someone? That's all they do. And it is such an incredible take on things that I think could literally change any school, because I think that the thing that teachers struggle with the most is not feeling appreciated.
Yeah. Maisha said, it's sad that we don't actually take time to show appreciation except for like small circles, right? You might do that in your smaller circle. She said, to me, it just sounds like one more thing to do instead of the main thing. It
does. But
it does.
Similar to the conversation with your students, it is a thing that, for me, if I think of a bow and arrow, it helps me to draw the string back further. I think that's what's called. I never, you know how much I'm into archery. It allows me to pull that string back further so that my arrow is going to shoot faster and further.
Yeah.
And so that's why I enjoy doing those things. And again, like I said, John Lopez is excellent at this, at just gifting people all the time, right? If y'all know John, like if y'all that are in here that are like for real friends with John Lopez, you know that you just get boxes at your house.
Yeah.
You get handwritten letters. Like we're in the 1800s and Sir John just sent you a new letter in calligraphy and on nice paper. It is that level of care that I think I know that I'm certain that John gets something out of that too. It's not just a thing he does for other people, but it's a beautiful gesture. And it gives back to you.
It does, for sure. That's where I have to remind myself, because Maisha, I feel like it's even helping other people sometimes. I just feel like that's going to take time away from. I have such a busy schedule, different things. It is something I'm trying to work on this year to change that mindset. I still haven't been very successful.
Can I give you an example of how you do that?
Sure, one of the things, I would say that I don't.
You won't do this, but and I'm not because you don't do lists. But one of the things I've done to really help me get into that mindset is I just write a list every day. And it is not rooted in reality. It would be cool if I could do this. What is so my word for the year is magic. How can I sprinkle magic on this day? Just write down 10 ideas every single day, even if they're terrible. That's one of the ways. So if anyone's trying to think of that or figure it out, it's just what could I do today? And when you have your students write letters to everyone else, you didn't have to do anything. I did 0 things.
That's
I
true.
told you to do it. It took me air. All right, hit it.
Kim is up next asking, any thoughts on giving open versus closed note tests? I teach high school science and my students will be assessed on the content on the state standard exam at the end of the year.
Kim, I don't do open note tests for a variety of reasons, but if I was it would kind of depend, right? So maybe depend on the student. But because what I find is that open notes, I guess, all right. So I guess if my test was rooted in basically rote memorization, having open notes is useless because now it's just giving you the answer. However, if I had students studying something like, let's say, history or the Bible or a certain time in like a certain genre of literature, I could see open notes being more useful because it's like you're going to write an essay about something or you're doing a close reading passage and you need reference points, right? So it's like, I don't expect you to remember exactly when To Kill a Mockingbird was written. And like, so it's like you could have some rough notes on that you could pull over. So it was more like almost mimicked like a research project in some regard, or a research paper. But overall, I want kids to master what we're talking about. But I'm not, so I guess that would be it. It's sort of like I'm sorry that this is a little bit of a vague answer, but it takes a little, sometimes, like I said, it takes a little bit more information. I would say my short answer is I've never done open notes because I didn't see the value in them. I'd rather give kids less stuff to know and then really go heavy on making sure they've mastered that content. I'm not someone that does a final at the end of the year on everything we learned this year. I think that's overwhelming. There might be certain pieces. So because each lesson has one or two like heavy, like these, like textual analysis we're going over, literary analysis, I don't know, annotating, right? Those carry through the year. But like if we studied soliloquy and asides in the beginning or monologues in October, I'm not going to hit you up for that knowledge at the end of the year. Like there's like, yeah, I just, that's not how I do it.
She did get some good responses in the comments.
Okay, good. Because I feel like that was not my best answer.
They also just said that they do closed notes.
Yeah.
Like you can do open notes for assignments, but closed for everybody said closed for tests. And I get it. That sounds like the best method. As a student, I loved notes. Being able to use my notes on the test.
It just makes it easier, or does it make it, you know what I mean? Like I think
it just makes it easier. Now for science and learning like tons of formula, there's so many formulas. Like
so that would
science.
be a thing to me or math, right? So like, are there a number of formulas? But a lot of times in tests, they give you that stuff anyway.
Do they?
They give you like a formula page or a reference page for a lot of that information, so you don't have to memorize it.
Yeah.
Then that makes sense to me.
Okay, I hope that helped, Kim. Julie is up next asking, how can I add my own flair to curriculum? Our school district...
Hold on, wait. I'm already getting excited. Go ahead.
Our school district is extremely rigid and strict when it comes to following the curriculum.
To me, all right.
CJ loves this challenge.
I do. Because it's, I'll tell you, one of the things I talked about in my book, and this is...
Well, Paul, before you even say that, I want to say, because it's the biggest issue that we hear, right? Like, it's the biggest complaint.
It's one of them,
especially towards, like, the things that you say to do. They go, I can't do that. I have a scripted lesson plan. Like, they just give up right after that. They don't even ask the question that you're asking, Julia. It's just like, oh, I can't do that. We're not allowed.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So I'm trying to think of, let me think. I'll use this as an example. I'm going to go completely over the top, right? So that you don't have to do this level of stuff, but just to give you an example. When one of the reasons I love this, and I talk about this in my book, there is a TED Talk by Phil Hansen, Hansen, called Embrace the Shake. It is one of the best TED Talks I've ever heard in my life. It's worth going to watch. But what he talks about is embracing your limitations and how sometimes having too much autonomy right? So for us in the classroom, having too much autonomy, it's paralysis. It's like too many options. It is the reason I'm so glad that I got married before Pinterest, because we wouldn't be married yet. We'd still be trying to figure out things. With that being said, looking at the limitations as something that excites you and figuring out how can I make the most of this, I think is really exciting. So if I had to read the Odyssey, they might say, here's how we want you to introduce it. This is the information the students have to know. These are the pages that they have to read. Here's the comprehension questions that they have to do. This is the final, like, this is what we need them to be able to, like, the standards that they have to meet at the end of this. But that doesn't say that when we read book 9 of the Odyssey about Odysseus and his men going to Polyphemus's cave, they talk about how they were all sitting around this fire. I could have a fake fire pit in my classroom. My friend Kevin Butler makes them all the time. You can go on his Instagram account. He's a remarkable teacher. And could I make the classroom when we read this look like Poseidon's cave? Could I draw or make, I used to want to make an inflatable version of this, but like I basically used to create large versions of Cyclops in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it was just paper, because I wanted kids to get the scale of how big this was. And I had very high ceilings in my classroom. So I think my ceilings were like 13 or 14 feet tall, something like that, maybe 15. But I would get bulletin board paper and draw out Cyclops, right? Just trace it on there, put a paper on your wall, trace it, cut it out, and then draw it on there so that when the kids came in the next day, they see that. How can I do that and turn my lights off when they come in and have a spotlight going up on it, like dun, 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 like this big, amazing moment? How can I take the questions that the students have to do and somehow gamify them, right? Could I do a Blooket? Could I do a Kahoot? And I talk about this all the time. I think that the way some of those platforms are used, it's used so much and so often by certain teachers, that how can we turn it into a game show where we're still kind of doing the same thing, but we're like, turn it into a game show and I got a microphone and a special jacket on and we're playing special music. How can I take what is there? So I'm not changing. I'm still introducing, reading, writing, answering questions. It's all the same thing. It's how am I doing it that's different. And it's not even just necessarily a reimagining of it. So an example of this, right, because I get inspiration from all different places. One of my favorite musicians of the last year is this guy, John Baptiste, who's going to be playing the national anthem this year at the Super Bowl. He just put out, he redid one of Beethoven's symphonies, but he did it his own way, right? It's still the same thing. It's still Beethoven. Anyone that listens to it's going to know that it's Beethoven. It's the same notes. It's, it's there. It's like he did it's like if someone does a cover of a song, what's your flair that you put on it? So it's looking at, all right, the introduction. How could I ask this question? Where could I ask this question? Whom could I have ask this question? Could I have this question pop up as a video? Could I have this pop up? Could we run these review questions as an escape room in our classroom, right? Instead of just answering regular old questions and putting them on a worksheet, it's like, could we get those answers from somewhere else? Could we turn it into Quizzo, right? Let's get kids ready for college, right, kids? Because everybody goes to Quizzo in college, but there's drinking involved. We're not talking about that part. It's like, can we run this like Quizzo and we're still getting the answers? So it's thinking of things like that. That is not how do I do this, but what would be a fun way to get to the thing that they want us to do. That's how I'm thinking about it. And then go nuts with all that.
Honestly, you talk about that in your lesson planning workshop. Like you go through, you give a lot of templates of like questions on how to connect, change, add a little something like in the workshop. So if you
and one of those
need that, it's there.
Here's a great activity. Tomorrow, either before school, but mostly after school, if you have the time, if you have 15 minutes, right, 10 minutes to do this. No one ever just strolls around their school. You got a tour probably when you got hired. You go to the places you got to go to and the rooms you got to go to, right? But when's the last time you just walked around your entire campus thinking, what could I do here? So if I look at where my kids go to school now, a giant field filled with prayer rugs on one side. There's 2 playgrounds in the back. There's a number of trailers that have no idea what's in them in the back of the school, right? But no one thinks to go in there. There's a giant gym. There's tons of hallway space. There's vacant classrooms at certain points of the day. There's a ramp in the middle of school because the high school is a little bit lower than the middle or than the elementary. So there's like a ramp that goes up. It's like just walking around every nook and cranny of your school and asking yourself, what could I do here? It just starts unlocking things in your head when I do it and thinking about, to the point where now I go to other schools and I'm like, I'll bet no one uses that ramp for anything at the school. I'd be ramping all over the place.
I know, right?
There's got to be something you can do on there, right? That big open gym that only has a couple of classes a day in there.
Yeah.
What could we do in here? The ceilings are ginormous in there.
We're out in the field.
So it's out in the field. What are we doing? Let's go talk to some prairie dogs. Like, let's do something. I think that is what I would really be focusing on.
All right. Well, we're out of questions unless you have another one.
I have one or two on Facebook. Oh, I hate when Facebook does that. It like goes back to
it closes your thing.
Yeah. But someone asked someone is getting let go.
Oh.
It seems like it really sucks. They got, from what I understand from reading, if I'm remembering this correctly, they got an observation last year. They were a new teacher. They got moved to the next tier because they really love the observation. They love the class, the vice principal. This year, a different vice principal came in. So they ran basically the same play and just tried to improve upon it. And they're getting let go this year.
What?
So
that seems nuts.
Do they tell their students that they're getting let go?
Oh.
I used to think no. I changed my thought process. I think yes. When we don't tell kids that whether you're changing schools, whether you're moving,
would you tell them you're getting fired or just say, I'm leaving the school?
I would let them know. I might be wrong. No. I would say I will not be returning next year. The school has decided not to renew my contract.
You would?
Here's why. Because I don't want them to think it's me that's leaving. Right? Like, I think there's a difference there. I don't need them to be mad at the school. I don't need them to be upset with anything. And maybe I wouldn't tell them that part right away, but I would certainly let them know that I'm not coming back. I think because kids need time to process things. And teachers, when I talk to them, they're regularly concerned that like they're going to lose all power in a classroom, that kids aren't going to listen to them anymore. And I found that wasn't the truth either time that I left a school. So I would communicate to kids that you're not coming back because you don't know for all your students, for the ones that need it. Some kids aren't going to care, right? Like even no matter how beloved you are in a school, some kids are just like, they either don't care or they're not going to show you that they care. But I have found that for kids that have abandonment issues, the last thing I want to do is spring it on you the last day of school and be like, yo, I'm not coming back in, next year. And I think that's too hard.
John made a good point. He said it depends on the grade level and the maturity.
Yeah.
To be able to say that to them and
your connection with the class. Some of the kids you don't connect with at all. Like, don't do it.
What you want to do is go to a school and say or say that, and then have your kids go to your principal and go like, yo, why are you getting rid of so-and-so? That could be a little hairy.
I don't care.
Okay.
What are you getting rid of me for? Be ready for their answer.
I mean, yeah, you have to back up your decisions for sure.
Right.
Facts.
Don't be embarrassed. It's like not a shameful thing. It's like, they have a decision.
Yeah.
Like they should be able to explain that to the young people.
Although that scenario seems whack. Like they did the same thing. It's like two different. One vice principal thought it was great, and the next one is going, yeah, it wasn't so stellar. Enough to let you go, which is crazy.
Kim's got a question.
Yes. As a new teacher, I don't have a lot of disposable income. I work at a Title I school with minimal resources and funding. What are some alternative ways to get money to help make magic in my class?
Kim, you have to trust in the kindness of others. So if you don't ask, the answer is already no. Have at least my friend Jen Jones says have at least 2 donors choose at any given time, and always have them running. Always. What'd you say?
I was gonna say, we were with you substituting and all the different grade levels that you've been substituting, it's really been generating a ton of ideas. So we just walked through Hobby Lobby the other day and CJ's just rattling off all these things that he would do with the different things that he saw on Hobby Lobby or whatever, like what that like spawned in him. And I thought, man, I would go to Hobby Lobby and just say, hey, I work at this local school. We want to do all these projects with this material. Would you be willing to donate the materials? I guarantee they're going to say yes.
Here's the trade-off for
they
that.
budget that sort of, they have a budget in their budget for these sort of things.
Most big box stores have a budget for giving back to the community.
I couldn't think.
And so even if they don't, right, like I would talk to a manager, let them know what I'm doing. So I had my 2 ridiculous ideas yesterday were one, so working at the school, there's a lot of electives that kids don't care about and that teachers don't really teach. So I thought what a really fun elective in talking to students would be something like the history of video games. So Hobby Lobby has all this cool like video game stuff in there. They have like the old Pac-Man. They have all the different colored ghosts and they plug in. So I thought it would be really fun to make on your wall, just get washi tape or painter's tape, project a Pac-Man game up there and make all the lines out of tape and then hang up the ghosts and the Pac-Man so that they light up. That would be really fun, like a focal point for your history of video games class, right? Or they have all these fun bowls right now and spoons and pitchers that are really bright colored, like vibrant
and they're plastic,
primary colors,
like
reusable, right? And I thought, oh, this would be so sick to make like a cart for cereal parties where you could like roll it out and like you have all your fancy gear and you're not like throwing it all in the trash. You can just wash it. I thought that would be really fun too. But just asking, you think of what you could leverage. Could we put an ad for you for free in the school when we do the school play? Could I tag you on social media? So if I have a large social media following, could I tag you? And then other people are going to see, Hobby Lobby is the spot. Like they just gifted us this stuff for our classroom and blah, blah, blah. Could I, whatever it is. Like, so when I did a deal with, a free deal with Home Depot one time and they gifted my school stuff, they were like, yeah, you just have to like tag us on the internet and can you put this sign that says like sponsored by Home Depot or something like that I had to put there. And it was like, yeah, sure. You got it, bro. It's that kind of stuff because then they can use those, even if I just send pictures, if I have students in them get permission, but sometimes Home Depot will use that stuff on their website. They'll use it in their promotions.
Or
each store sends out a
letterhead.
Yeah,
like
they set out newsletters, right? Like here's what
we did.
Store 937 did this month. We sponsored this cool thing at the local school. So it's always asking people. I would go to thrift stores and ask stuff, like any big box store, right? Or Goodwill. Goodwill throws out so much stuff that they're given. Just ask them for it for free. And that's where I would start. And donors choose.
Yes. All right. Well, that's all we got for
cool.
right now.
Well, that's good. We're almost at an hour. And I'm going to go take a delightful walk outside in 76-degree weather.
I'm going to make a cookie pie.
Act like it's spring, even though my skin is like damn near translucent this time of the year. Yeah. So anyway, gang, if you missed the lesson planning workshop and you still want to do it, it's still, we're putting all the stuff together now, but it's purchased. You can purchase it for sale right now. And the link is going to be under this video once this posts, if it's not already. If we can do anything else for you, just reach out to us and let us know. And I really appreciate you being here. I meant it on the front end that you are made differently if you're showing up to something like this. And I can't stress that enough. So thank you so much for being awesome. Anything else coming up we need to tell people about?
No, not that I can think of.
No? Cool. Gang, have me come speak at your school. Here's the QR code, and we'll see you next week. Peace.